We're now only just over a couple of weeks away from episode Heresy dropping in Destiny 2, and additionally we've had new content for the current episode, as well as the update this week. So today we've got some news, updates, and teasers for upcoming releases. Bungie talk about some of the changes they've made this week. They also speak in more detail about the behavior of certain weapons, clarify re-enabled abilities and items in the game. Plus we get teasers for changes coming in Heresy, weapons which are being reintroduced into loot pools, as well as extra changes for playlists. So we'll talk about that and a project which Bungie have been working on for 3 years to bring another title to players, which is actually a separate thing from Marathon and Destiny. So a few things to talk about today, guys. If you enjoy the video, help us out by hitting the subscribe button, and otherwise, let's get into it. And first up today, before we speak about things related to content this week, it would appear that Bungie are teasing some weapons returning in Heresy. So the Destiny 2 team shared on X, on a clover, if alive, erupts a vast, pure evil, a fire volcano. Some folks were confused, me included, I suppose, but as many folks in the community have recognized, it looks like the palindrome hand cannon is returning in episode Heresy. And of course, Bungie like to cycle weapons in and out of the Nightfall pool, so this isn't entirely surprising. Some folks will be happy about it. Others, rightfully, will point out that we get a lot of reissued weapons. It isn't entirely surprising though, as Bungie have a tendency to do this. Additionally, they dropped another teaser just yesterday. What is the opposite of an insignificant lie? We hold these trials and truths in high regard. And the assumption appears to be with this one, that Bungie are possibly teasing the exalted truth returning as well, which of course is a Trials hand cannon. So a couple of teasers there. Give us your thoughts down below. Those who've been waiting for the return of Palindrome, especially, I'm sure will be pretty excited. And no doubt in the very near future, Bungie are going to be outlining those updated loot pools. So I'll keep you posted as always. Other small updates coming in Heresy though, that Bungie tease here. Someone said, I still can't believe they're running 2 weeks of Iron Banner, and that's in reference to Iron Banner being up this reset, but D2 team said, we're going back to 1 week runs next episode. So obviously a lot of feedback from PvP focused players that they're missing out on trials for a full 2 weeks while Iron Banner is active. And we know that Bungie do have plans for a bunch of Trials of Osiris updates in Heresy, so this is likely, partially, so that they can actually feature the updated trials for more weeks in the episode. But it have been general feedback anyway, so give us your thoughts about that. Further on that subject though, Destiny 2 team referenced the increased Trials rep last weekend, and the short Trials hiatus for Iron Banner starting this week. But they add that a Crucible competitive and Trials focused article is planned for late in January. So if you're curious about the PvP updates Bungie have been teasing, we'll get more details about that later on this month. And they say the road to Heresy is about to begin. Just like you guys, I'll be keeping my fingers crossed for plenty of positive info and details for that upcoming episode. As always, I'll keep you posted when we have them. Separately though, now that Bungie have dropped the patch with a fix for guitar errors on a bunch of destinations, DMG said, apologies for the dust on this. Some bugs indeed take longer to address than others depending on how deep they are. And he added that hopefully this should also address error codes in activities for those destinations, such as Deepstone Crypt. There were a few extras in Vesper's host as well, so the hope is that they've generally improved with this update, and if you have any experiences with them, I'd love to hear about that in the comment section. Moving on to other content updates from this week though, of course Bungie fixed the issue with Shadow Shot in Vesper's host, and a bunch of other issues with exotics. It did actually take an hour or so after the patch dropped, but Bungie eventually confirmed they re-enabled Tether in Vesper's host and the Balados Wrathweavers across the entire game, so those ones in particular are now back in action. Separately though, the Destiny 2 team speak about Slayer's Fang, and they say we've seen conversations around its ability to do self-damage and apply Weaken to yourself if you're hit by a ricocheting projectile. And they note that Weaken is only applied when Nightsworn Sight is active, while the self-damage always happens, and this is intentional for both gameplay and narrative reasons, and we want to give a bit of insight into our thought process. So a lot of ricochet projectiles or explosives can do self-damage, like Sleeper Simulant, and it's an important balancing measure. If you're taking a cheeky shot around a corner or just firing from the hip, the self-damage provides a balance to ensure high risk, high reward usage. But on the narrative side, Slayer's Fang is aware of its use as a tool for destruction, and it doesn't lend its power to the wielder easily. You may find that if you mishandle Slayer's Fang, the gun with a mouth for a barrel may just bite back a little, and with the ultimate Slayer Baron weapon in your hand, you may not fear dreams nor teeth, but you'll want to handle it with care. So appropriate for its design and narrative goals, Slayer's Fang does a little damage, plus a short weaken, instead of outright killing the player. But as always, we're happy to see feedback, and we'll continue to adjust sandbox atoms accordingly. So a few insights about why the weapon performs the way it does right there. And now that we've had a week or so to actually use it, including with catalysts, I'd love to get your thoughts on the shotgun down below. A last thing to mention to end the video right here though, and the game post shared exclusive details on Bungie's MOBA Smash Bros hybrid gummy bears under new PlayStation Studio. And we know that Bungie were working on this project, codenamed Gummy Bears. And as the article points out right here, Bungie have been quietly working on this IP for a few years. And in recent months, it officially transitioned from Bungie to a new PlayStation studio, which also holds around 40 Bungie developers spearheading the continuation of this development. So there are folks who technically work at Bungie who are still making this game, but it is essentially under Sony management now in a dedicated PlayStation studio. In terms of what we know about Gummy Bears, the Game Post reports that it's a MOBA at its core with a playful twist incorporating elements inspired by Nintendo's hit platform fighting game Super Smash Bros. And this is according to multiple sources familiar with the project who wish to remain anonymous. And it details that players won't have traditional health bars, but instead the game uses a percentage-based damage system where characters are knocked back further based on how much damage they've taken or inflicted, and players can even be knocked off the map entirely. With the game featuring multiple game modes, catering to various player preferences, and 3 distinct class types, with support, attack, and defense being the core of those classes, and ways for players to hang out with each other and express their identities in-game outside of matches. On top of that, the game will come with a lo-fi cozy aesthetic, aiming to appeal to a younger audience compared to Bungie's previous works, and this tonal shift reflects a deliberate effort to diversify the studio's portfolio and connect with new demographics, where internally the game has been described as Bungie's most fun project from incubation, receiving overwhelmingly positive feedback from playtests. And the fact that this has apparently been in development for at least 3 years. So for a rundown of key details we currently know, it's a PvP team-based competitive game with fundamentally MOBA mechanics, but also a Smash Bros influence intended to separate it from other elements in the genre. On top of that, multiple game modes are planned, and the article also points out that Bungie's recent patent filing sheds light on potential gameplay mechanics for Gummy Bears, describing a system where towers in MOBA games can dynamically move, jump, dodge, and use special abilities when charged, which is a specific piece of technology which Bungie have built for this title and have IP protections for. So quite interesting right there. Obviously, Sony felt that Bungie weren't in a position to take this game all the way to a release on their own, especially given the work that they have to do on Destiny and Marathon. And that's why it's been separated into a Sony studio exclusively, which will, yes, of course, have been impacted by the layoffs that have taken place at Bungie. So it'll be interesting to see when we hear any more about this. We know that Marathon is Bungie's other main priority at the moment outside of Destiny. So it seems possible or even likely that we'll hear about Marathon first, but only time will tell. Again, it's going to be an interesting year. But I wanted to give a quick update on that other partially Bungie title, I suppose, at this point, as the collaboration between Sony and Bungie tightens. So give us your thoughts about it, guys, but if you've enjoyed the video today, a rating really does help us out on the channel. Also, do us a favor and hit the subscribe button and the bell icon down below if you are new around here, because as always, we'll have plenty of updates regarding Destiny to drop in the near future. So keep it locked and loaded, share any thoughts you have in the comment section, and if you enjoyed the video, a rating really does help us out as well. But otherwise, I appreciate you tuning in, and I hope you guys have an awesome day.